Alright, in this lecture, we're going to be talking about color and how it affects the mood of your paintings. So, for examples, I'm just going to be using photographs because that's much easier than painting entire paintings to demonstrate this to you. But you will get the idea by the end of this lecture. So, when it comes to the mood of your paintings, there's some basic things you want to understand. So, everything kind of gets broken up into warm and cool colors and the moods they create. So warmer colors tend to create more of a happy feeling. So warmer colors would be things like oranges, yellows, and stuff like that. So right here you can see that I have a photograph. And this photograph it's pretty warm. It has a lot of warm colors in there. Even though it has some blues as well, it also has some yellowish greens. It has some warmer colors up in here. And it just feels overall a little bit warmer. Another thing when it comes to your colors that are going to make your paintings look a little bit more warm, a little bit more inviting, and just kind of, I guess you could say, happy overall, is going to be the saturation. The more saturated it is, the more fun and inviting it looks. So if you were doing an animated figure, for example, you'd probably want to paint with a little bit more saturated colors just to make it look a little bit more exciting, a little bit more happy and inviting. So right here we have this photograph. It's pretty saturated and it looks a little warm, so it looks very fun and inviting. Nothing about it doesn't invite you into the image. Now, I went ahead and I edited this image, and you can see that in this next version, I kind of took all the colors out and I only left cool colors. So there's really only sort of green colors in the tree and blues and purples. And other than that, I took out all the warm colors. I also added a little bit of shadow in there just to make it a little bit more gloomy. But you can see that just by changing the colors, this image became much more gloomy and much more intense. So cool colors, so the greens, the blues, and the purples, those will tend to make things look a little bit more sad, maybe depressing or gloomy, and sometimes maybe not even that. If you have them more saturated, so right now I also desaturated all these colors in this picture, but if they were more saturated, it might look a little bit more inviting, and it just might make the image look cold. So let's say you're doing an icy North Pole environment, you'd probably want to use a bunch of cool colors, but it could still look fun and inviting and not look so scary or so depressing because the colors are more saturated. But since they're more desaturated right here, you can see that it makes it look very gloomy, maybe even a little bit scary. Now, warm colors aren't always happy. They don't always create a warm, happy feeling. So for example, my next one, I went ahead and I took the same picture and I basically only added red here. I added a little bit of shadowing down here, but you can see that the red, just the overall monochromatic redness in the image, really creates a very intense look. It looks almost devilish, or you could say it looks like hell, I don't know. But it just looks more intense. It looks like the type of building that maybe vampires would live in or something like that. So sometimes when you have really intense reds in there, that can be used to create more of a scary effect. Or maybe, let's say, red skies or red eyes, stuff like that. So it's important to also understand that sometimes warm colors can make things look a little bit creepier. Alright, now I have another picture here. Let's go ahead and have a look at this. So right here you can see I have this picture of this elderly woman. She's throwing leaves up in the air. The colors are nice and saturated, and most of them are warm colors. It looks like it's fall, and it looks very inviting. It looks very happy. Now, the reason for this is because of those warm colors, those bright colors, and not only that, but saturated colors. So the greens, the oranges, all of that are pretty saturated. Now I went ahead and I took a version of this image and I desaturated all the colors. So jumping from that saturated one to this one, it might have looked like it almost went from colored to black and white. But if you let your eyes adjust a little bit, you'll notice that there is still color in here. The leaves are a little bit orange and the trees are a little bit green. And just by taking out some of that saturation, you can see that the picture, it kind of becomes a little sad. Even though the lady is smiling and it looks like she's having a good time, it feels a little bit sad. It looks almost like it could maybe be a memory or a flashback of somebody that's passed away, or maybe something bad is about to happen to her. Who knows? But it gives it a little bit more of either a depressing or an eerie vibe just by taking out some of that saturation. So it's really important that when you're adding your colors and you're trying to figure out what you want the mood to be, that you understand that saturation is going to make things look more exciting, look more happy, more inviting, and desaturation is going to make things look a little bit more sad, or it can make it look scary or a little bit depressing. It can give the viewer a little bit of an uneasy feeling. Alright, now let's have a look at our last example. So for our last example, I went ahead and I took this picture and I darkened it a little bit, and I also tinted it blue. So what this does is it just makes it look like maybe it's a little bit more gloomy. It's not necessarily depressing. It's not necessarily sad, but it looks like maybe there's some clouds blocking the light, and she's just getting kind of a cool blue color over her. And maybe the sun is setting, and so there's not as much light. Maybe a storm is coming, something like that. And just by adding this sort of more cool blue color over all of it, and just kind of affecting all the colors that way, it makes it look like a little bit more of a weathery type image. It looks like it could possibly be raining. So these are things to really consider. There aren't necessarily rules when it comes to this stuff. There aren't rules I can necessarily teach you on what exactly you need to do to make a painting look exactly the way you want the mood to feel. But what you really have to do is you just have to start experimenting, and also study other people's art and photographs and try to determine, does this photograph look happy, or does it look sad, or does it look scary? And then study those colors and try to figure out which colors usually are associated with different moods, and try to implement those into your paintings. So just be very aware of the color moods that you're adding to your paintings. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.